There are many stories about the big bad wolf. Many tales of his sly schemes, of his dastardly deeds, and his preposterous plots. They are told all around the world, in every culture, in every language, for centuries past. But I wonder if you've ever heard this one before. This story takes place at Christmas time, when the forest animals were busy decorating their homes and preparing for the festivities. Bright lights twinkled in the trees, and the forest hummed with joy. But the wolf's den, hidden away in the darkest part of the forest, was cold, empty, and quiet. No lights twinkled over his door. The wolf huddled alone in his den, staring out at the snowy woods. "I hate Christmas," he muttered. Everywhere the wolf went, he saw animals enjoying themselves. The squirrels had strung up shiny ribbons in the trees, and the rabbits were building snowmen in the meadow. The wolf huffed to himself. How ridiculous. On Christmas Eve, the wolf was prowling near the edge of the forest when something strange caught his eye. A flash of red and white hurtled through the sky. The wolf squinted. Surely not, he thought to himself with a sneer. His eyes tracked the red and white blur as it came careening down to the ground with a crash that echoed throughout the forest. A prickle of panic rose up in the wolf, but he squashed it back down and shrugged it off. He didn't care, he told himself. But he found that he couldn't quite bring himself to go home without having a quick check, so he started through the trees to investigate. The wolf's heart skipped a beat. He had heard stories about Santa Claus, but had never believed they could really be true. But there, just as surely as he stood there himself, was the sleigh, the reindeer, and the very real Santa Claus right there before him. He looked unharmed, and the sleigh seemed to be in good working order, so the wolf turned and started to head back to his den. "Ho, ho, ho!" Santa boomed heartily, to no one in particular. "I seem to have had a little mishap. Not to worry, still plenty of time to deliver all the presents to the good little boys and girls." What nonsense, thought the wolf, ignoring him. But as he walked away, he felt a tiny twinge of regret. It might have been nice to meet the real Santa, but the wolf knew for certain he was on the naughty list, and felt sure that Santa wouldn't want to meet him. He trudged a few steps more, and just as he was almost out of earshot, he heard Santa once more. "Oh no," Santa said, his voice laced with dread. The wolf stopped. He turned and saw Santa Claus looking in his magical sack, rummaging around in it, turning it upside down and shaking it. It was empty. The wolf was torn. Santa clearly needed help, but would he accept it from someone on the naughty list? Gathering his courage, the wolf stepped out from behind the tree and cleared his throat. Santa turned around, seemingly surprised to see the big bad wolf standing there. But then Santa's rosy face broke into a huge, warm smile. "Well, well," Santa said, "what can I do for you?" The wolf tried hard to look like his heart wasn't doing backflips, and he said calmly, "Well, you looked like you needed some help, and it doesn't look like there's anyone else around, so, I'm here." Santa sighed, his jolly expression dimming slightly. "Yes, my sack of presents is empty. It was full when I left the North Pole, but now they're gone. Without those presents, I won't be able to deliver gifts to all the children and animals tonight." The wolf shifted awkwardly. "Perhaps I could help you find them?" he offered. Santa's eyes twinkled. "You want to help? I know I haven't been very good in the past," the wolf admitted, "but maybe I'd like to try." Santa's warm smile returned. "Well, wolf, I'd be glad to have your help. Christmas is about kindness and giving after all." The wolf nodded, a warm and fuzzy feeling creeping into his chest. "I think I know who might have taken your presents." Using his sharp nose, the wolf sniffed the air. There was a familiar scent of mischief in the wind, one he had smelled before. "Follow me," he said, leading Santa through the snow-covered forest. The two of them walked past tall pine trees and frozen streams until they reached a dark, twisted part of the woods. The wolf pointed to a large hollow log. "Trolls. They're always playing pranks. I bet they swiped your presents." Santa nodded thoughtfully. "Ah, I've heard of them. Let's find out." Quietly, Santa and the wolf approached the log. Peering inside, they saw a group of tiny, mischievous trolls huddled around a pile of presents. They were giggling as they played with the ribbons and bows. Santa stepped forward. "Ahem." The trolls jumped, startled to see him, and indeed the big bad wolf. They looked at the presents, then back at Santa. One of them let out a tiny whimper. "What are you doing with my gifts?" Santa asked, kindly but firmly. The trolls looked at each other sheepishly. Santa sighed gently. "I understand you wanted to join in the fun, but taking things that don't belong to you isn't the way to do it. Christmas is about giving and sharing, not just receiving." The trolls looked down, squeaking ashamedly. Their leader scuffed his foot on the ground. The big bad wolf, who had been quietly watching, suddenly spoke up. "Why don't we make a deal?" he suggested. "You trolls can help bring the presents back to the sleigh. That way you'll be part of the Christmas magic, and it might make up for taking the gifts." The trolls perked up at the idea and chirped hopefully. "Great idea, Wolfie," Santa said with a wink. And so, as Santa, the wolf and the trolls loaded the presents back into Santa's sleigh, the wolf felt the warm spark in his heart spread to the tips of his fingers and right down to his toes. Maybe Christmas wasn't that bad after all. And maybe, just maybe, neither was he. Once the sleigh was loaded, Santa turned to the wolf. "Wolfie, how would you like to join me for the rest of the deliveries?" The wolf's eyes widened. "You mean, ride with you in the sleigh?" Santa chuckled. "Of course. After all, you've shown me that you understand the true spirit of Christmas. Who better to help?" With excitement, the wolf climbed into the sleigh beside Santa. The trolls jumped about and waved them off as Santa took the reins. With a jingle of bells, the sleigh roared into the sky, leaving the forest far below. Throughout the night, Santa and the wolf worked side by side, delivering gifts to all the good children and animals. By the time dawn arrived, they had delivered every single present. Santa guided the sleigh back to the clearing where they had first met. He smiled as he climbed down. "Thank you, Wolfie," Santa said warmly. "I knew you wouldn't let me down." The wolf was confused for a moment. "You knew? What do you mean, you knew?" Santa looked a little sheepish and said, "Well, maybe it wasn't such a coincidence that I crashed in this particular part of the forest. It seemed to me that this Christmas, more than anything, you needed a friend." The wolf looked at him in amazement. "Thank you," he said. Santa shook him warmly by the paw. "I better get back to the North Pole," he said. The wolf turned to head back to his den. "One more thing," Santa said. He reached into his sack and handed the wolf a small package. "This is for you," Santa said, with a twinkle in his eye. "You're officially off the naughty list." The wolf carefully unwrapped the gift. Inside was a soft, cosy scarf and a shiny bell that jingled softly when he shook it. "Merry Christmas, Santa," the wolf whispered, a tear in his eye. With a final jingle of bells, Santa's sleigh disappeared into the morning sky, leaving the wolf standing in the snow, filled with the joy of Christmas. The end. A Merry Christmas. Once upon a time, in the magical, wintry land of the North Pole, there was a fantastical workshop like no other. It was full of bustling elves, tinkling bells, and the smell of fresh gingerbread. This was Santa's workshop, where Christmas magic came to life every day of the year. In this workshop, toys were built, presents were wrapped, and joy was made out of thin air for children all over the world. Of course, Santa Claus himself was in charge of the workshop, but he did not work alone. The elves were small but mighty, fueled by Christmas cheer and extremely skilled in their work. This story is about two of those elves in particular. Holly had an eye for detail, and she had a very important job. She was responsible for making sure every doll had just the right dress, every car had the smoothest wheels, and every teddy bear had a perfectly tied ribbon. She took her job very seriously, and she never liked to ask for help. Jingle was the inventor of the workshop. He was always creating new gadgets and tools to help make Christmas even more magical. He took his job seriously too, but he could be quite shy, and he often worried about what other people would think of his ideas. One chilly December morning, just a few days before Christmas Eve, Santa gathered all the elves together in the main workshop hall. His twinkling eyes were filled with excitement, but there was a hint of concern on his face.
"Listen up, everyone," Santa said. "We have a problem. Some of the most important toys, the ones for children who've been extra good, have been left in the old barn by mistake. They must be retrieved before Christmas Eve, otherwise the children won't have any presents."
The elves gasped and whispered among themselves.
"Don't worry,"
Santa continued, smiling reassuringly.
"I'm sure it's just a mix-up, but I'll need some volunteers to go and collect them. Anyone?"
Holly and Jingle immediately raised their hands.
"We'll go,"
they said in unison. Santa beamed.
"I knew I could count on you two. The old barn is in the far northern forest. It's quite a tricky road, and the weather report says a blizzard is on its way, so it won't be easy. But you'll probably be fine."
Holly and Jingle quickly bundled up warmly. They grabbed a map from Santa, which would help guide them through the North Pole's tricky tracks and winding woods, and off they went, waving goodbye to the rest of the elves. As they made their way through the snow-covered woods, Holly and Jingle chatted eagerly about their mission. Holly couldn't wait to see the special toys, and Jingle was already thinking about how he could improve the toy delivery system for next year. The journey started off smoothly, but as they ventured deeper into the forest, the wind began to pick up. Snowflakes swirled around them, and the once clear path became harder to see.
"This blizzard is coming in fast,"
Holly said, squinting against the cold wind.
"We should check the map to make sure we're still going the right way."
Jingle pulled the map out of his pocket and unfurled it. But as he did, a sharp gust of wind tore it from his grasp, and it was carried away, lost forever.
"Oh no!"
Jingle cried.
"What will we do now?"
Holly tried to raise Jingle's spirits.
"Don't worry, Jingle. I'm sure you'll think of something. You always do."
Jingle felt a little tingle of pride at this. He had a big think, and finally he said,
"I do have an idea."
And he pulled some special magical binoculars out of his pocket. This amazing invention let him see the nearest cup of hot cocoa, and he immediately lowered them and pointed into the snowy woods, announcing,
"That way."
The two elves hurried on and found themselves at a cosy little house made entirely of gingerbread. The walls were covered in sugared jellies, the roof was lined with gumdrops, and a candy cane chimney puffed out sweet-smelling smoke. A golden glow shone from the windows, inviting them inside. They knocked hopefully on the gingerbread door, and, to their surprise, it swung open of its own accord, revealing the most enticing sight. Inside was a warm, glowing room filled with twinkling lights, a roaring fireplace, and the sweet smell of gingerbread and hot cocoa. Sitting by the fire was an old elf, dressed in a patchwork coat and wearing a jolly smile.
"Well, well,"
the old elf said with a chuckle.
"What do we have here? Two of Santa's finest lost in the storm?"
Holly and Jingle nodded and told the old elf about their mission.
"I see,"
the old elf said kindly.
"The old barn's not too far from here, but the blizzard has hidden the path. Perhaps you would like some help?"
Holly shifted nervously at this. She didn't like to ask for help, but she knew this was the only way.
"Yes, please,"
she said nervously, shifting from one foot to the other. The old elf reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, shimmering crystal shaped like a snowflake.
"Take this,"
he said, handing it to Holly.
"It's a snowflake compass. It will point you in the right direction, no matter how fierce the storm. Just follow where it leads and you'll be at the barn in no time.
Thank you.
Holly said, her eyes wide with gratitude. Jingle just gaped at the snowflake compass in wonderment.
How does it work?
The old elf chuckled again.
Just a little Christmas magic, dear boy. Now hurry along. You still have time to make it.
Holly and Jingle thanked the old elf again and stepped back out into the snowy night. As soon as Holly held up the compass, it began to glow softly, showing them the way to go. The wind still howled and the snow still swirled around them, but the compass's glow guided their way. After walking for what felt like hours, the glow of the barn's lights finally appeared through the trees. Holly and Jingle cheered with relief as they hurried towards it. Once inside the barn, they found rows and rows of the most beautiful toys they had ever seen. There were dolls dressed in velvet gowns, wooden trains painted with bright colours, and teddy bears as soft as clouds.
We found them!
Holly exclaimed, her face glowing with excitement. Jingle grinned.
Now let's get them back to the workshop before Santa loads up the sleigh.
The two elves worked quickly, loading the toys onto a special sled that Jingle had found and modified with extra speed boosters. With the magical compass still guiding them, Holly and Jingle made their way back through the forest, the sled gliding smoothly over the snow. As they approached Santa's workshop, they could see the other elves waving and cheering. Santa was standing at the entrance, his face lit up with joy as Holly and Jingle arrived.
Well done, my dear elves, Santa boomed, clapping his hands. You're just in time. You've saved Christmas.
Holly and Jingle beamed with pride as the other elves helped unload the toys and placed them into Santa's magical sack. Santa gave them both a big, warm hug.
You two have shown bravery, teamwork, and best of all, you believed in yourselves, Santa said kindly. I couldn't be prouder.
And as Santa flew off into the starry sky, his sleigh full of toys and his heart full of joy, Holly and Jingle shared a hot cup of cocoa and celebrated their great success. They both knew that this Christmas would be one they would never forget. The end. And Merry Christmas. Once upon a time, not very far away from your town, in a cosy brick house, there lived 3 little pigs. They felt safe and happy in their sturdy home, especially as they knew they had seen off the big bad wolf, and he would bother them no longer. And with Christmas just around the corner, they were bustling with excitement as they readied themselves and their home to celebrate their favourite time of the year together. Each little pig had their own special job to prepare for the festivities. The first pig, who loved to play and have fun, made the games and activities they would play on the big day: Pin the Tail on the Wolf, Dizzy Piggy, and Woodland Whispers. The second pig, who liked to make things beautiful, decorated the house with holly and ivy, twinkling lights, paper snowflakes, and a huge Christmas tree overflowing with tinkling bells, shiny baubles, and sparkling tinsel. The third pig, who was very clever, was in charge of the food. Making a festive feast is pretty tricky, and it takes a lot of concentrating and skill, so he was the perfect pig for the job. He made buttery roasted parsnips and creamy cauliflower cheese, sweet nutty stuffing and crisp roast potatoes. And for pudding, he made a sumptuous cherry pie and custard. Everything looked delicious. But as they were busy with their preparations, the pigs couldn't help but feel that something was missing. Just as they were pondering this, there was a loud knock on the door. The pigs jumped and looked at each other, unsure who would be visiting them on Christmas Day. The first pig peered through the window and gasped. "It's a fox!" he squeaked, trembling a little. The other pigs exchanged worried glances. The fox stood on the doorstep, shivering and cold, looking hungry and lonely, and the pigs straight away felt sorry for him. After all, it was Christmas, a time of year to be open and generous, and they were sure the fox felt the same, so they opened the door. Come in, the pigs cried. Inside, the fox was ushered over to the fire and given a cup of hot cocoa and a blanket. They bustled around him, trying to help him feel warm and comfortable and involving him in their Christmas traditions. As the fox warmed up, he became quite chatty, and the pigs were pleased to see that he wanted to get involved in the preparations. He tried to help the first pig with getting the games ready, but he found it quite tricky to understand all the rules, and he kept saying things like, "These games don't look very fun. Can't we play Chase the Chase the Mouse?" It was a bit annoying, as the first pig had spent so much time preparing, so he suggested that the fox help with the decorating. The fox tried helping the second pig to hang a string of lights over the fireplace, but he kept getting tangled up. He said, "All these decorations are a bit over the top, aren't they? We usually just go out hunting, go for a lovely walk and then come home for supper." This sort of comment wasn't really that helpful, so the second pig suggested that the fox help in the kitchen. The fox tried to help the third pig with buttering the parsnips, but he kept doing it a bit too roughly and the parsnips were turning to mush. "Is this all we're having?" the fox said, wrinkling up his nose. "Well, what do you usually have?" the third pig inquired, a little irritated. The fox thought for a moment. "Sometimes we have rabbit," he said, putting the butter knife down on the table. "Sometimes we have pheasant," he said, wiping his fingers clean. "But our favourite thing to have for Christmas dinner," he said as he licked his lips, "is pig." He leapt over the table towards the pigs, and they squealed and ran through the front door and out into the snowy night. The woods were empty. All the other creatures were at home celebrating with their families, so there was no one there to help as the pigs ran through the night, the fox snapping at their heels. Suddenly, there wasn't just one fox, not two, but a whole family of foxes chasing the pigs. This had been their plan from the start. The pigs ran and ran, jumping over fallen logs and scraping through brambles, and they were starting to get tired, starting to slow down. Suddenly, they heard a howl, and then, there in front of them was the big, bad wolf, snarling and snapping his jaws. The pigs were terrified, but not as terrified as the foxes. They were enemies of the wolf and had been for generations. The foxes turned tail and scampered back into the woods, whimpering. The pigs were frozen in place, trembling at the new danger before them. But the wolf stopped snarling, sat down, and smiled nervously at them. "Hello, pigs," he said gently. The pigs said nothing. They had been fooled already tonight, and they wouldn't allow it to happen again. "I understand that it might be hard to trust me after everything that happened," the wolf said. "You know, all that huffing and puffing business." He looked a little embarrassed. "Well, I mean to make amends. I was actually on my way to your very nice house now to give you these." He held open his sack, and inside were delicately wrapped Christmas presents, addressed to the pigs. "For us?" the pigs said. "For you," the wolf confirmed. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I regret how I treated you all. It's no wonder I've never really had any friends when that's how I used to behave. And, well, Christmas is just such a terrible time to be lonely." He offered them a small, hopeful smile. The pigs looked at each other.
What?
They finally realised what was missing from their Christmas. They had been having such a wonderful time together, but deep down, they knew that the wolf was out in the woods, cold and alone, and they simply couldn't enjoy Christmas because of it. "Come on," the pigs said. "You better come home with us." "Really?" the wolf said, his ears pricking up in surprise. "After everything?" "Yep," the pig said. "After all, Christmas is a time for eating, drinking, games, presents and fun. But it's also a time for kindness, for generosity and for forgiveness. So that's what we'll do. Let's go." The wolf followed them home through the woods, chatting and laughing all the way. As they entered the cosy little brick house, he was instantly warmed by the fire. But he also felt warm in his heart too, because he knew he had 3 new friends and his old life was far behind him. He gave the pigs their presents. A banjo for the pig who loved to play and have fun. Brightly coloured paints for the pig who loved beautiful things. and a library card for the clever pig, so he could read all the books he wanted and would never have to stop learning. The pigs were delighted. The wolf enjoyed the delicious supper and all the games, and the pigs decided that as their special guest, and because he was the tallest, he could put the star at the top of the tree. At the end of the evening, they all hugged the wolf, and he thanked them for their kindness. They invited him back the next year and all the years after that, and he gratefully accepted, knowing that they would now be lifelong friends. The end. And Merry Christmas. The Big Bad Wolf's Christmas Surprise. Once upon a time, there was a tiny village surrounded by a thick, enchanted forest. And in that forest lived the Big Bad Wolf. Everyone in the village and the forest knew the stories about him, how he blew down houses, chased children, and caused general mischief wherever he went. But lately, the Big Bad Wolf had been keeping to himself. He no longer terrorised the village, nor did he stalk the forest paths. He had become lonely, forgotten, and bitter. It was Christmas Eve, and the entire village was buzzing with excitement. The villagers were placing shiny baubles on their trees, hanging twinkling lights, and preparing grand feasts to share with their friends and families. Laughter and cheer echoed through the streets. But high on a hill, in a dark and cold den, the Big Bad Wolf sat alone, far away from the warmth and joy of the village. The wolf watched from his den as the twinkling lights of the village flickered in the distance. He grumbled to himself, "Christmas, bah! What's so special about it? A bunch of silly decorations and pointless gift-giving." He huffed and turned back to the dark corner of his den. His grumpy mood was made worse by a bothersome and irritating feeling of, well, he wasn't sure what. Lately, he'd noticed that the spirit of Christmas, the joy, the cheer, the magic, seemed to be fading. The forest was quieter, the laughter not as bright, and even the snow seemed less sparkling. Not that he cared, but he wondered what had caused it all. As the night grew darker and the villagers started to head to their beds, the Big Bad Wolf was startled by a loud thud outside his den. He pricked his ears and cautiously moved towards the entrance. To his surprise, lying in the snow outside his den was a large, shimmering sack. It sparkled with a soft glow and seemed to warm the air around it. "What now?" he muttered, his nose twitching as he inspected the sack. The wolf gingerly opened the top, peering inside. To his shock, the sack was filled with swirling and glittering magic, and as he stared at it, he felt overcome with joy and awe at the magic of Christmas. The wolf snapped the sack closed again, looking at the tag on it. "To the village, your Christmas spirit, love from Santa Claus." The wolf's eyes widened. "Santa Claus?" he gasped. "This is his sack of Christmas spirit. How did it end up here?" The wolf thought hard about what to do with the sack. What if he just kept it? Finally, he shook his head. "I can't keep this," he muttered. "Christmas may not be for me, but it's important to everyone else." Determined to do the right thing, the wolf knew he had to return the sack to the village before Christmas morning. But how? He couldn't just walk into the village without causing a panic. No one trusted him, and they surely wouldn't believe he was bringing Christmas spirit back instead of taking it away. As he thought about what to do, the wolf's sharp ears picked up the sound of footsteps crunching through the snow. He looked up to see a young boy from the village wandering towards his den. The boy was shivering, his red coat flapping in the cold wind, and he looked lost. "Hey!" the wolf called out before he could stop himself. "What are you doing out here, kid?" The boy froze, wide-eyed and terrified. The Big Bad Wolf?" he stammered. I didn't mean to." The wolf sighed, trying not to scare the boy any further. "Relax, kid, I'm not going to hurt you. What are you doing so far from the village on Christmas Eve?" I got lost," the boy admitted, his teeth chattering from the cold. "I went into the forest to find a perfect Christmas tree for my family, but then it got dark, and now I can't find my way home." The wolf tilted his head. "Well, you're lucky you didn't get caught by something worse than me. The forest can be dangerous at night. The boy moved quickly to stand closer to the wolf, no longer afraid of him. He looked up at the wolf's large, looming figure and smiled nervously, and then glanced at the shimmering sack behind him. "What's that?" The wolf hesitated, but then decided to tell the truth. "This is Santa's bag of Christmas spirit. It fell near my den, and now I need to return it to the village before Christmas morning, or no one will have a happy Christmas." The boy's eyes lit up. "Santa's bag? Why, this is incredible! But how will you get into the village?" "I was hoping you might help me," with a wry smile. "I can get you back through the forest, and if you can guide me through the village without causing a fuss, we can get the Christmas spirit back where it belongs." The boy thought for a moment, then held out his hand. The wolf looked at it cautiously, and then reached out his paw, and they shook on it. The wolf picked up the magical sack and tossed it over his shoulder. Together, the boy and the wolf carefully made their way through the forest and toward the village. As they approached the edge of the village, the boy turned to the wolf. "We'll go through the back streets and into the square where the big tree is," the boy whispered. "That's where Santa always leaves the Christmas spirit for everyone to share." The wolf nodded, following the boy's lead as they crept through the snowy streets, dodging windows and avoiding the villagers. Soon they reached the village square, where a giant Christmas tree stood proudly in the middle. It sparkled with lights, but something about it seemed dimmer than usual. Without the Christmas spirit, the tree couldn't shine the way it was meant to. The wolf gently placed the sack beneath the tree, and as soon as he did, the tree glowed brighter, and the air around them filled with the sweet scent of pine and cinnamon, and the entire village seemed to hum with warmth and joy. The Christmas spirit had returned. The boy looked at the wolf in awe. "You did it! You brought Christmas back!" The wolf smiled, a real genuine smile, and felt something warm in his chest. "I suppose I did," he said quietly. Just then, a soft jingle filled the air, and a familiar voice boomed from above.
"Ho, ho, ho! What do we have here?"
The wolf and the boy looked up to see Santa Claus landing his sleigh in the square. Santa hopped out and walked over to them with a twinkle in his eye.
"Ah, my sack! I wondered where it had gone," Santa said, patting the wolf on the back. "Thank you, Wolf. You've saved Christmas for everyone."
The wolf blushed, not used to praise. It was the right thing to do. Santa smiled warmly.
"Indeed it was. You've shown that even the big bad wolf can have a heart full of Christmas spirit."
The boy grinned and tugged at the wolf's paw. "See? You're not so bad after all." With a jolly laugh, Santa handed the wolf a small wrapped gift.
"For you, my friend. Merry Christmas."
The wolf unwrapped the gift to find a beautifully crafted ornament, a shining star to place on the village Christmas tree. For the first time in his life, the big bad wolf felt a sense of belonging, and not only that, but the true joy of Christmas. The end, and Merry Christmas. Once upon a time, in a quiet little village where nothing ever really happened, lived a miller. He spent his life happily in his windmill, milling the flour that made the bread that fed the village, and raising his 3 young sons. When the dear old miller retired, he left his 3 sons everything he had. The eldest got the mill, the middle one got the donkey, and the youngest, well, he got the cat. That's right, just a cat. Great, thought the youngest son, whose name was Jack. What on earth am I supposed to do with a cat? But the cat wasn't just any cat. Oh no, this was Puss. And Puss wasn't going to let Jack sit around feeling sorry for himself. "Cheer up, kid," said Puss one day, licking his outstretched paw. "I've got you." Jack blinked. "You can talk?" "Obviously. Now listen," Puss said, hopping up onto the table like he owned the place. "You and me, we're going places." "Are we though?" Jack sighed. "I don't even have a loaf of bread, let alone a future." "Details, details," Puss said, waving a paw. "If you can find me a bag and a pair of boots, then I'll take care of the rest." Jack stared. "Boots?" "Yeah, Boots! Ever seen a proper hero without boots? Fair enough, shrugged Jack. He had nothing to lose anyway, so he spent his last few coins on a sturdy bag and a tiny pair of boots. Puss slipped them on, gave a twirl and grinned. Perfect. Now watch this. Puss trotted off into the forest, bag slung over his shoulder like a proper adventurer. He set up a little trap with the bag, added a sprinkle of cunning and some carrots for bait, and waited. It wasn't long before a plump rabbit hopped cluelessly into the bag. With a quick pull of the string, Puss had it. Gotcha, he said, tying up the bag. Puss headed straight to the royal palace. I've got a gift for the king, Puss announced grandly, puffing out his chest. Moments later, he was in the throne room, presenting the rabbit to the king. A gift from my master, the Marquis of Carabas, Puss declared, bowing low. The king raised an eyebrow. The Marquis of who? The Marquis of Carabas, Puss repeated, like everyone should know the name. He's very rich, very generous. The king was impressed. Tell your master I thank him. Oh, he'll send more, Puss promised with a sly smile. Over the next few weeks, Puss kept busy. He trapped partridges, pheasants and other fancy-sounding birds, delivering them all directly to the king. Another gift from the Marquis of Carabas, Puss would say each time, bowing so low his whiskers nearly touched the ground. By now the king was thoroughly impressed. This Marquis must be a remarkable man, he exclaimed to his daughter, the princess. The princess, who was kind-hearted and curious, nodded. I'd like to meet him someday. Meanwhile, back at the village, Jack was hopelessly trying to catch fish in the pond for their dinner. He had no idea what Puss was up to or where he was going when he disappeared off for hours at a time. Where have you been? Jack asked Puss when he finally returned. Puss just smiled and flicked a fat trout out of the water with a flick of his paw, the wriggling fish landing right at Jack's feet. How's my favourite Marquis doing? Puss asked, grinning. What's a Marquis? Jack repeated, confused. You are, Puss said. Don't worry, I've got a plan. Just follow my lead. A few days later, Puss took Jack to the river and handed him a pair of old trousers and a shirt. Put these on, Puss said. Jack frowned. Why? Because we're about to make you famous, Puss replied. Once Jack was dressed, Puss told him to jump into the river. Wait, what? Jack spluttered. Trust me, Puss said, giving him a shove. With a splash, Jack landed in the water. Just as planned, the king's carriage happened to be rolling by at that very moment. Puss waved his arms frantically. Help! Help! My master, the Marquis of Carabas, is drowning! He cried. The king, recognising the name, stopped the carriage. Save him at once! Robbers stole his clothes while he was bathing, Puss exclaimed dramatically. The king ordered his servants to fetch fine clothes for Jack, who suddenly looked quite dashing. The princess, peeking out from the carriage, blushed. Well, well, Marquis, said the king, beaming. Why don't you ride with us? Jack, still bewildered, climbed into the carriage. Puss winked at him from the roadside. As the carriage rolled through the countryside, Puss ran ahead. He stopped at a field where farmers were working. Listen up, Puss called. When the king passes by and asks who owns this land, you say, the Marquis of Carabas. Got it? The farmers, startled by the talking cat, nodded quickly. Sure enough, when the king's carriage passed, he asked, Who owns this fine land? The Marquis of Carabas, the farmers shouted. The king turned to Jack, impressed. You own all this? Jack, catching on, nodded. Yes? Meanwhile, Puss kept running. He stopped at every field and meadow, giving the same instructions. Before long, the road reached a grand castle, and the king was convinced that dear old Jack was the richest man in the kingdom. Now, about that castle, it actually belonged to a terrifying ogre, but Puss wasn't worried. He marched right up to the castle door and knocked. The ogre answered, towering over Puss.
What do you want, little cat? He growled.
I've heard you're very powerful, Puss said, casually, brushing some dust off his shoulder. Is it true you can turn into any animal? The ogre smirked.
Of course.
Even a lion? Puss asked, pretending to be doubtful.
Watch this,
the ogre roared. With a flash, he transformed into a massive lion, his mane brushing the ceiling. Puss pretended to tremble. Impressive! But I'm sure animals are easy. I bet you couldn't turn into something else, like a gooseberry.
A gooseberry?
The lion ogre scoffed.
Easy.
In an instant, the lion was gone and a plump green gooseberry dropped to the floor.
Gotcha,
Puss said, pouncing. With one quick gulp, the gooseberry was gone. When the king's carriage arrived at the castle, Puss was waiting at the gates. Welcome to the castle of the Marquis of Carabas, he announced. The king and the princess were amazed. What a magnificent home! Jack was pretty amazed too, but with a nudge from Puss, he remembered to play along. Yes, welcome! The princess smiled at Jack, clearly smitten. The king, seeing how well they got along, decided then and there that they should marry. And so, Jack and the princess were married in a grand celebration. The king was thrilled to have such a clever son-in-law, and Jack was thrilled to have a cat who wore boots and made his life awesome. And Puss? He became the castle's official advisor, living the rest of his days in luxury, with a warm spot by the fire and a different pair of boots for every day of the week. And they all lived happily ever after. The end. Once upon a time, there was a mother goat, and she had 7 little kids. She loved them all very much, and she worked hard to keep them all happy and healthy. Not so very far away, there was a big, bad wolf. He worked very hard to keep only himself happy and healthy. He didn't much care about anyone else. One day, the mother goat needed to go to the market to get some delicious dinner for her kids. As she left the house, she told her little baby kids to lock the door behind her and not to open it for anyone. Don't open the door for anyone, especially the big bad wolf. He might try to trick you, but remember, his voice is rough and gruff and grumpy sounding, and his paws are grey. If you remember those things, he won't be able to trick you. She kissed them all goodbye, and off she went to the market. Before long, the wolf came along, just as the mother goat had predicted. He knocked on the door and said,
Little goats, it's me, your mother. Do let me in. I've brought treats for you from the market.
The little goats listened carefully and heard the rough, gruff, grumpy sound of the wolf's voice. Go away, they shouted. We know you're the wolf. Your voice is rough and gruff and grumpy, and our mother's voice is lovely and nice. You can't fool us. Quite annoyed, the wolf stomped off, back into the woods he came from. A bee buzzed around his head and he had an idea. He found the bee's nest and carefully took a little bit of honey, which he ate up in one big lick. When the honey reached his throat, it soothed it and made his voice sound all smooth and lovely and nice. He grinned wickedly. Off he went back to the little goat's house and knocked on the door again. Little goats, it's really me this time, your mother, back from the market with treats for all of you. Do let me in. The little goats all looked at each other. It really did sound a lot like their mother. But the littlest goat peeked through the letterbox and saw the wolf's grey paws. You're not our mother, he cried. Your paws are grey and our mother has white hooves. Go away, you can't fool us. Even more annoyed, the wolf skulked off, back into the woods he came from. As he walked, he got tangled up in a spider's web, the sticky silk covering his face. Ugh! He cried. But then he had an idea. He took the pale, silvery white spider silk and wrapped it round and round his hands, smoothing it and shaping it as he did so that after a while his paws looked just like little white hooves. Off he went, back to the little goat's house, and knocked on the door once more. Little goats, here I actually am this time, your dear mother, back from the market with treats for all of you. Listen to my lovely and nice voice and look at my cute little white hooves." He dangled them daintily by the letterbox for the little kids to have a look. "Please let me in." The little kids looked at each other again and they all nodded in agreement. Nothing to worry about here. They happily unlocked the door and threw it wide open to greet their mother and eat their delicious treats. The wolf jumped through the door and said, "Ha ha, it's me, the wolf, you silly little goats. It was me all along. I fooled you." He chased them all around the house and they tried to run away and hide. 3 goats hid under the bed. He found them. 2 goats hid behind the sofa. He found them. 1 goat hid under the doormat. He found him rather easily. The wolf threw them all in his sack to take home for his dinner. But after the busy morning he had had, traipsing back and forth to the woods and then chasing those pesky little kids all around the house, the wolf felt rather tired. He spotted a nice little patch of soft grass under a shady tree just by the riverbank, and he thought, "I'll just have a little nap, and then I'll head on home with my sack of goats and eat them for my tea." Feeling very smug, the wolf set down the sack and went to sleep. But there was something the wolf hadn't realised, something that he had missed. And if he had listened properly at wolf school in his maths lessons, it would not have been so easily overlooked. Earlier on, when he was chasing the little kids, trying to find them all in their hiding places, there were 7 little goats. But in his sack, well, let's see, 3 goats under the bed, 2 goats behind the sofa, 1 goat under the doormat. That's only 6 little goats in the sack. 1 little goat was missing. Meanwhile, back at the goat's house, the real and very lovely mother goat returned from the market. She opened the front door and gasped at what she saw. The house was in utter disarray. The chairs had been knocked over, the curtains had been pulled off their hooks, and her lovely little baby goats were all gone. "Where are you, my little kids?" she called out, panic-stricken. Then a little muffled voice said, "I'm here, Mother." She followed the sound of the voice to the grandfather clock and opened the little door wide. Her littlest baby goat was squashed inside. After she had pulled him out and he had told her exactly what had happened, the lovely mother goat put her serious face on. She didn't use it very often, usually if they wouldn't tidy their toys or if one of them pinched a brother or sister goat. But when she did, her baby goats knew she meant business. She took the littlest goat by the hand and marched off towards the woods, determined to give that naughty wolf a very severe talking to. They found the wolf still snoring under the tree, the sack of goats still wriggling and jiggling beside him. Mother Goat had an idea. She carefully opened the sack and, encouraging the little kids to be as quiet as possible, she freed them. She hugged and kissed all 6 of the little rescued goats, and then she got to work. She collected up 6 of the biggest rocks she could find and placed them in the sack, tying it up again just as she had found it. She and her 7 little kids watched, hidden behind a big boulder, as the wolf stirred and woke from his nap. He licked his lips and rubbed his greedy paws together as he went to lift the sack onto his back. But the sack was so much heavier than before, and the wolf wasn't expecting it, and the weight of it, as he swung it over his shoulder, made him stumble backwards, right into the river. Splash! The little goats and their mother goat laughed and laughed, and then they skipped back to their little house. After a bit of tidying up, they sat around their table enjoying the treats their lovely mother had brought from the market. And they all lived very, very happily ever after. The end. This is the story of Goldilocks and how she learned her lesson. Once upon a time, in the woods just down the road, there lived a family of bears. They were happy and kind, and they were the type of bears to always try to see the best in everyone. If someone was rude to them, they would say, "That's okay, maybe they're having a bad day. We've all had one of those." Or if someone pushed in front of them at the shops, they would say, "That's okay, maybe there's been an emergency and they're in a terrible hurry." always kind, always generous, and loved by everyone in the woods. They lived in a sweet cottage, just the three of them. Papa Bear and Mama Bear were carpenters, and they fashioned the house and everything in it to be just perfect for their little family. All of the furniture was made to measure for each of them, and every day when they came home and sat in their chairs or lay in their beds, they would heave a huge sigh of relief and think how lucky they were to have such a perfectly comfortable home. One sunny morning, Mama Bear made 3 delicious bowls of porridge in each of their special bowls. A small wooden bowl for Baby Bear, a medium-sized, pretty blue and white china bowl for Mama Bear, and a large tin bowl for Papa Bear. But when they came to eat their porridge, it was far too hot and nearly burned their mouths. They decided to go for a gentle stroll in the morning sunshine, so they put on their hats and stepped out into the woods. Not far away lived a little girl named Goldilocks. She was an obnoxious little oik. That means she was unpleasant, rude, and selfish, and she didn't care at all who she put out or offended. She was an all-round nasty little wretch, and all those who met her considered her to be generally bad news. Goldilocks happened to be strolling through the woods on this lovely sunny morning too. She'd been sent outside by her mother for refusing to help with the washing up. Straight away, she smelled the delicious porridge smell wafting through the air, and she followed it to the bear's cottage. And then Goldilocks just let herself in, with no concern for what sort of trouble it might get her in. She was pleased to see no one was home and strolled right into the kitchen without even taking her muddy boots off. She plonked herself down at the table and took a great big steaming spoonful of Mama Bear's bowl of porridge. "Yuck!" she declared rudely. "Too sweet!" and spat the porridge back into the bowl. Disgusting behaviour. She took a huge mouthful from Papa Bear's bowl. "Yuck!" She scrunched up her horrid little face. "Too salty!" and spat the porridge back into the bowl. She took a great big heaping spoonful from Baby Bear's bowl. "Mmm," she said. "Just right!" And she scoffed the lot, the greedy thing, even licking the bowl. When her belly was full, she fancied a little sit down and swaggered through to the living room. There, she found the 3 bears' chairs. Goldilocks tried Papa Bear's chair first. "Too hard," she said, and jumped off the chair, knocking it backwards onto the floor. She tried Baby Bear's chair next, and as she flopped down onto the chair, it broke and went crashing to the ground. "Ah!" she cried. "What a horrible little chair!" Finally, she tried Mama Bear's chair. It was perfectly comfortable, and it was a very pretty pink colour with buttery soft blankets thrown over the back. Goldilocks made herself right at home, picking her snotty little nose and wiping it on the arm of the chair. What a horrid little girl. She felt a little bored and decided to head upstairs for a rest. She clomped up the stairs, leaving a trail of mud behind her. She lay down on Papa Bear's neatly made bed first. She couldn't get comfortable, and she tossed and turned until it was all messed up and muddy from her boots, which she still hadn't bothered to take off. Eventually, she rolled out of that bed. "Too hard," she said, and moved on to Mama Bear's bed. She flopped down onto it and nearly disappeared amongst all the cushions and soft blankets. "Ah!" she cried, and tried to wrestle her way back to solid ground again. "Too soft," she said, yet again, leaving a muddy trail behind her. Lastly, she fell into Baby Bear's bed. She thought. If she were perfectly honest with herself, it was a little cramped, but it was the most comfortable of the 3, and she was rather tired, so she rolled over and went to sleep without another thought. Just then, the sweet, kind bear family returned from their walk, hungry and eager to eat their breakfast. They'd been thinking about their delicious steaming hot bowls of porridge since they left, and they were very excited. Straight away they noticed that something was wrong.
"Somebody's been eating my porridge,"
said Papa Bear. "Somebody's been eating mine too," said Mama Bear. "Somebody's eaten all of my porridge," said Baby Bear. The bear family looked at each other, and even though they were very upset and really rather hungry, they decided to think kind thoughts. This is very difficult, especially with empty tummies. Perhaps the person who ate our porridge was lost and scared and starving. We should think the best of them, they said. They decided to go and sit down and try to enjoy what was left of the morning, but when they saw their chairs, they were even more concerned.
Someone has knocked over my chair,
said Papa Bear. Someone has broken my chair altogether, said Baby Bear. There is snot on my beautiful chair, said Mama Bear. The bears looked at each other and tried very, very hard to think kind thoughts, although this was becoming increasingly difficult. They were starting to feel little prickles of annoyance at their mysterious guest. Perhaps the person was unwell, they tried. Maybe they sneezed so hard that Papa Bear's chair fell and broke Baby Bear's chair, and perhaps some sneeze accidentally got onto Mama's chair. It sounded pretty far-fetched, but they really were doing their best. That's when they saw the trail of mud going up the stairs. They followed the trail, wondering what on earth they would find next.
Someone has messed up my bed,
said Papa Bear, feeling very cross. Someone has messed up my bed, said Mama Bear, feeling even more cross. Someone is literally still asleep in my bed, cried Baby Bear, feeling the most cross of them all. Just then, Goldilocks opened her eyes and let out a huge yawn. The bears looked at her, waiting to hear what possible explanation she could have. She took one look at the bears and said, "Ugh! What are you all staring at, smelly old weirdos?" The bears could hold it in no longer. They had tried and tried and tried to see the best in Goldilocks, but it seemed to them that there just wasn't any good in her at all. Their crossness built up inside them until it exploded out in a gigantic and ferocious roar. In a heartbeat, Goldilocks jumped from the bed, ran down the stairs and bolted out of the door and into the woods. Goldilocks went straight home to her mother and started frantically washing up as fast as she could. Her mother never knew why, but Goldilocks seemed to be a lot more pleasant and helpful from that day on. And the three bears made sure to always, always lock their door when they went for a stroll. The end.